Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is Blueprint Design and I'm Nikhil. And in this video, we are going to be looking at designing and prototyping navigation shortcuts in your designs. To give you an example, here is the Possum app that I was working on recently. And this app is primarily to create more awareness to adopt pets and also to make shopping for pet products easy and more accessible. I'm gonna leave a link of this video that I made about this application in the description if you're interested. But specifically for this video, what I'm talking about is adding more functionality to the navigation bar. So I have different tabs for different functions in my app, and in your app, you may have some different navigation options over here. But here is a scenario that I'm talking about. So you may have noticed the floating action button that actually allows you to create shortcuts in different apps and speed up the workflow for the users. So this example is an email client app on running on Android OS. So the user can click on the floating action button over here to perform different tasks that the user is more likely to do. I'm going to be talking about implementing the same function or adding navigation shortcuts in your designs, but in a different way. So you may have seen two different ways users design the applications. They have the navigation bars over here, or they may have the floating action button. It's not likely that you will see both of those in many applications. So what if you want to implement that floating action button feature in the designs where you have the navigation bar? So let's say I'm in the services tab for my Possum application where the users can actually book appointments for different services for their pets. And I want to shop as a user, I want to shop for different products. So I can go to the tab, and here is the floating action functionality that we can implement. When we hover over the shop navigation bar item, and since this is a recording on a computer, I'm using the hover feature, but on an actual app, this might be a long press. So this may be helpful in certain scenarios, and this is what we're going to design in this video. I'm fairly new to YouTube, but I like sharing my ideas and knowledge with the community. Do me a favor and hit the like button. Also share this with your network so more people can benefit from this idea, and consider subscribing to this channel as I'm going to be sharing videos regularly about different tips and tricks in designing. So let's get started. So I'm in Adobe Xd, and these are the few artboards that are used in the Possum application. If I zoom in over here, you can see that the navigation bar that I've used in all the artboards is actually a component, with this one being the main instance of this component, and I've used the instances of this component in the artboards. So whatever changes I make over here will also be shown over here. I've made a separate video about components and how you can take advantage of using components in Adobe Xd. I'll leave a link for that video in the description as well. In this example, we really need to make changes to the shop navigation item so we can add the different options or shortcuts over here in the main component. But since, if you notice over here in the layer panel, navbar is the component, but I cannot move any item directly inside a component. What we're going to do for this is basically make changes to this item over here, which is the same icon as this one. And then I'll show you a way of how you can actually add new items to an already made component. I want to make a chat bubble sort of, so all the shortcuts actually show up when I long press on the shop navigation item over here. So using the rectangle tool, I'm quickly going to make a rectangle, remove the border, add some border radius, and to show the smaller end of that chat bubble, I'm going to select the polygon tool over here from the options, and holding the shift key, I'm going to make a triangle. So again, removing the border from this one and then flipping it upside down, I will just align this over here so it looks like a chat bubble. But I'm not going to leave it there. With both of these shapes selected, I am actually going to create a union. So if you see on the properties inspector, you have these Boolean operators. I'm going to select the first one, which is the add, which essentially combines both the shapes into one single shape. And now, zooming out over here, these are some of the items that I want to add on that chat bubble actually. So I've already added 3 items, which is toys, bowls and feeders, food and treats. I got these options from the list or the categories of the products to shop from in my design. So in your design, these options may vary according to what you may choose to show there. So this is the category toys, and then bowls and feeders, food and treats. I can get those items from the data analytics team to see what are the popular options that users actually choose more often. And I can show those options to the users in the navigation shortcuts. So for example, let's say a lot of my users actually use clothes and costumes, view a lot of clothes and costumes, and they shop around for clothes and costumes for their pets. I may want to add one more option over here to say clothes and costumes. Now I'm going to actually replace this icon. But again, all the options over here, you may have noticed that these are components. So I'm going to make this a component as well. So I can right click with this layer selected or this group selected and make a component. Alternatively, I can also press Command or Control K as a shortcut. I'm going to remember that one actually. So with all the 4 components already created, I'm going to select all the 4, copy those and paste them over here. I'm going to adjust the height and the dimensions of the bubble box to adjust all of these items. All right, so I'm actually going to select all the options that I have and also that bubble box and press Command or Control G to actually group all of these. I'm going to give it a name as options. So now you can see that actually when I long press on the shop navigation bar over here, these options will pop up. So I now have all the components required. I just need one last thing actually. So coming back to this artboard over here, when I long press on the shop navigation icon over here and the options actually show up, I want to add some darkness in the background so all the other items over here do not interfere with these items, with these options actually. So I'm going to add some blur to the background, and I'm going to do that over here itself. With the rectangle tool selected, I am going to create a rectangle with the width same as this artboard, which is 414, and the height is going to be adjustable actually. So the viewport height on my artboard is actually 896 pixels, and this navigation bar height is actually 88 pixels. So I'm going to make this height for this rectangle 896 minus 88, and I'll show you a reason shortly. First, I'm going to remove the border, give it a nice black color, and then about 70% opacity. On the layers panel, I'm actually going to include this rectangle with opacity within this options folder. So I'm going to move it down behind the bubble, so the bubble is actually visible. So now I'm going to take this options folder, which has all the options over here and also the background. I'm going to copy this and select any item within the original navigation bar, which is this one. And as I mentioned earlier, this is, you can use this as like a workaround to basically move items within a component. You can actually copy that item, and then once you navigate within the component in the layers panel, you can simply paste it over here and it's going to show up within that component. The shop navigation icon is actually group 1. So I'm going to move this over here and again make this entire thing into a component. So this essentially becomes a component within a larger component, which is the navigation bar. And I've also made a video about nested components and the advantages of using nested components. I'll leave a link to that video as well in the description. But as I've spoken about components or nested components in that video, when you add a component within larger component, it's basically an instance of that component and not the actual or the original master copy. If you want to make edits to this component, which is inside a larger component, you need to right click and edit the main component if you need to make any changes. So that's what I'm going to do now over here. So as you may have seen, while I was making these changes in the components, all those changes were actually propagated immediately within all the instances. So if you see the artboard over here, all those changes are already there. And that's one of the advantages of using components. But again, this is the larger component and this is the actual shortcut. So what we want to do actually is we only want to show these options when the user either hovers over this or long presses on this icon. So coming to the properties inspector, I can actually simulate that by adding one more state to this component, and I'm going to add a hover state. So when I actually, for this video, when I'm showing this on a computer, if I hover over the shop navigation shortcut, I can see all of these items over here. So this view is essentially for the hover state. I'm going to go back to the default state and I don't want to show these options in the default state. So I'm simply going to select that options folder and hide it. Now you may see that the bounds of this component actually change depending on what items within that are visible. Now, since I have actually made this folder hidden, I now have to go back into the hover state and then show that once again. So as I said earlier, you see when I actually show this folder, the bounds of the component or the boundaries actually change accordingly. Scrolling to the top, I have this navigation bar and the shop icon over there. And it's an instance of the main component which we just edited. But if I come back to the properties inspector, this is the hover state and this is the actual state. We don't need this, so I'm just going to delete it right away. So I'm going to save my progress and check what we have so far over here. So if I hover over this, I can see all of these options, and if I take my mouse out of that area, those options are gone. So this is what we wanted, and from now on I can actually add like these shortcuts on different navigation items over here depending on my use case. I don't want to flood the user with all of these shortcuts. Like that may not be the best user experience for this application. So I do want to encourage the users to actually shop for more products and easily find them actually. So I want to add those in here. You can make that decision for your designs. And from here, I'm actually going to make these items actually clickable so that when the user taps on them, this actually takes them to certain place in the artboard or even a different artboard. So I'm actually going to go over here and this is the original components for all of those items. So for each item, I'm going to add a hover state, and the only change that I'm going to make for this hover state is I have this rectangle which serves as a background for this item, and I'm just going to change the color for that background. So this is the default state and this is the hover state. And I'm going to repeat the process for all the other 3 items as well. Okay. And so now, as I mentioned earlier, to add the interactions, I'm actually going to go on this artboard where I'm using those interactions. And I'm going to go over here into the hover state where these are actually visible. I'm going to expand to that layers in the layers panel, quickly go to the prototype tab, and now I'm going to go to the hover state. Again, like navigating within the layers can be difficult, but it's only a one-time thing, and organizing layers in the layers panel is actually going to help you in the long run. And so I'm going to add an interaction over here. This is obviously going to be a tap trigger, but the type of action is actually a scroll action. In my case, you can actually choose to basically link this to a different artboard in your designs. So for the clothes and costumes, I actually want to basically take the user to the clothes and costumes section within the same artboard. So essentially what a scroll action does is takes the user to basically that point on the artboard, and you can actually give a Y offset. So basically how far down from the top you want that particular section to show. So in my case, I have the menu bar over here on the top, and also the status bar for the mobile device. So I'm incorporating those heights into my interaction as well. I'm going to give a duration, and that's it. So you can see that interaction over here. It actually takes the user directly to this section on the same artboard. I'm going to again create this interaction for all the other 3 items over here as well. Perfect. I'm going to save my progress, go back to the design tab, and here's the moment of truth again. So let's say I'm on the services tab where the user can actually click and book appointments for different services for their pets. And I want to go to the shop tab, so I can just click on this shop icon and it'll take me there. But again, now when I hover over this, I see all of the different options and the shortcuts to take me as a user to that particular section directly. And so I can browse the items, and then I can actually shop for those items. So this is going to speed up my workflow. And that's it for this video. This is one idea that I thought may be useful for you. And if you found this useful, do let me know by hitting the like button, and actually let me know what you found useful down in the comments. I'd love to see your feedback as well. Please consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your network so more people can benefit from this. And press the bell icon so you're notified when I actually share my next video. Thank you so much for watching.